I appreciate you meeting with me because I know we're quite a few hours of
Yeah.
difference. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm happy you asked me, to be honest.
Oh, well, good. Yeah, I mean, it's nice. I've watched your YouTube videos here and there, and
Mhm.
obviously the readings that you've given me, but it's nice to meet face to face.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. All right.
Mhm.
Well, before we get into it, I wanted to kind of just jump into at least my like how I came into astrology and even sidereal.
Okay.
Um, so when I started my awakening, astrology was like the first thing that was shown to me. And I loved it because it was like my first step of like getting to know myself and understanding or understanding
Yeah.
myself. And then, so I probably got into like Western astrology for like, I don't know, 2 years or so. And then my brother, maybe about a year ago, he sent me my chart in sidereal. And so Western, I'm Libra, Gemini, Virgo. So when
Mm.
he sent me um, my sidereal and it was Virgo, Taurus, Leo, I was like, no, that's not me. Right? I was like, I no, not having it. So, and for me, like Gemini, being a Gemini rising, I identify with that as in quick witted and quick thinker, and with it being Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, I understood that, like, oh yeah, I'm definitely into like researching and all those kind of things. So I was like, no to sidereal, right? I'm like, no.
Mm.
And then recently someone came into my life and started asking me like, oh, well, what are your signs? And I gave them both sides, like my sidereal and Western. So he started looking into it and he's like, hey, I hate to break it to you, but you're a Virgo. And I was like, okay, maybe, right? Because we always grow and learn and things like that. And then I happened to be in a thrift store right around this time, and I looked over, and there was like this little gold plate, and in the plate was a rock, and it said Virgo on top of it. And I was like, oh shit. So anyway, I bought that and I have it like on display on my like bedside table. But
Mhm.
and then it was the greatest gift. One of the greatest gifts that someone ever gave me was a reading done by you for me.
Oh.
So, and it was funny because when I listened to your reading, I just started like a dry fast, and I was doing it when the moon was in my sun sign. And
Mm.
I kind of had the idea of sidereal. So I kind of timed it where, okay, it was going to be half in sidereal and half in Western, just because I was doing a 2-day dry fast. So while I was entering my first day into the dry fast, I listened to the reading that you gave me. And I was just like, holy shit, when I got to really, like listening to it. First of all, I mean, you do such a great job. I love your voice.
Oh, thank you.
I love it. And it's so calming, and I love all the things that you say. And then the reading, like it truly is a gift what you give. Like I really truly mean that.
Mhm.
Um because I really was able to see a different side of myself, and it really resonated a lot.
Yeah.
So much of it. And I've had many readings, all Western. This is my first sidereal reading. So I just really enjoyed it, and it really opened my mind. And then lastly, the thing I'm going to say is because I was stuck in this world, and I don't want to say stuck in this world, right? But the Western and the sidereal, I was like, okay, well, like, what do you listen to? Like, what,
Yeah.
if they're so contrasting, like, what do you do with that? So I happened to take to Waters Above Jordan, and I asked a question on his live, like, hey, what do you think about sidereal versus Western? And one of the main takeaways he said was, Western is for them and sidereal is for us. And he went into to explain like it's not like us versus them, but if them is like the mainstream, right? And like what's popular, and sidereal is what is just not as known. And if you want to know more about like your inner self or just what is going on in the actual sky,
Yeah.
sidereal is the way. So I just want to, turn it over to you now and just talk away about sidereal.
Yeah. So, um, I'm happy that the reading resonated. Like I said, I generally get blown away every time I do a reading and people say it's spot on. I'm like, wow, because I've not met you before.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I'm glad about that. And yeah, I kind of got in it, like a bit about my story. I When I started to get into astrology, it was Western. I always knew I was a Taurus because I'm born 7th of May. So I was like, oh, I'm a Taurus. So that's kind of what I went with. But when I kind of got a bit deeper into wanting to know myself, as you said, I came up into knowing about the rising, the moon, and all of the different placements. And then I came across sidereal. So in the tropical, I am Taurus sun, Aries rising, and Aries moon. But in sidereal, I am Aries sun, Pisces rising, and Pisces moon. So when I first kind of got into it, I resonated a bit more with my Pisces rising and Pisces moon, but then I kind of fell into, oh, that's Eastern astrology, so it's not for me. I should obviously just focus on tropical. And so that was my first little taste into it. I forgot about it for a few years, and then I came across someone and I just saw her on Instagram actually. She goes by Water. It was Water Priestess, but she's a lot about H3O2 water and you know. Anyway, she shown an app one time of the sky and I was like, "Oh, what's that?" So that was something kind of a seed that piqued my interest. And then how I fell into it even more, I was having my I like to call it high time, sky time outside. And that's part of my meditation. I just love looking at the stars. And at this point, I didn't make that mental click that that is astrology. I was just looking at the stars and I'm just like, wow, it makes patterns. In my head, I'm seeing it's making patterns, forgetting that they're constellations. And then one day it just clicked. I was like, wait, what's that app? I'm sure there's an app. And it was when was it? July. It was in July, probably like the teens of July. And the sun was out, and I remembered the app. And then I found it, and I'm expecting the sun to say it's in Leo season. But the sun was in Cancer. It was in Cancer, and that literally brought me onto my journey here. I just started to question. I was like, wait, that's where astrology is meant to be happening. Western astrology should be interpreting the stars that I can see, but I realized it was off. And then it all clicked to me then when I looked back and I confirmed I am a Pisces rising, Aries sun, and Pisces moon. It all made sense. And I myself resonated much more with, the actual positioning of the stars. So I just went with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I came across one of your videos. I honestly forget how, but I was hearing a lot that with me being Gemini rising in Western, that Jupiter was in Gemini. And a lot of people were talking about that. And I was like, oh yeah, all right, I'm here for that. Like what's gonna happen for me, right? In the time. And then I came across your video and you were talking about Jupiter is in Taurus. And that was kind of my first like little click, right? I'm like, wait, okay, like it's not Gemini, it's in Taurus. And I kind of had the same experience as you did. It was a while ago, and I was using an app, and I put it up to the sky, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, that's not what that is showing
Yeah.
me. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
what do you think is better about, maybe better is not the word, but what do you like about sidereal versus Western? Or let's first say sidereal is the view from us on Earth up looking at the sky. And Western is kind of like a bird's eye view. I don't know where the origin is, but it's like a bird's eye view. Is that correct?
Oh, I'm not sure. Like the way I see it, you know how the seasons, like the beginning of the year should technically be April when life starts to spring up and so on and so on, but they have pushed the new year to January in the middle of a season. I generally think they've literally just jumped ahead of time. That's what I think. Like I don't know if how can I just generally think they're saying it's a certain degree when it's not.
Mhm.
And that's all I think they're doing. Um, Again, for trying to control, same reason why the New Year's in the middle of a season in January is to throw us off center, basically.
Right, because it's what is it, 23 degrees, the difference between sidereal and, Western?
I think so, 23 or yeah, I don't know the exact degree, but I'm
Okay.
just like, this is off. This is off.
Because I often hear sidereal, will be called Eastern, right? And I get that, that's tropical and Western. And a lot of
Yeah.
times, sidereal, they'll say is Vedic. So is that just where, like, that originates from? The idea of sidereal comes from?
I believe so. I believe that's the case. And Vedic, they look much more into oh, they call them like different names. I can't remember the exact names, but it's like it's very different and it goes in depth in a very unique way. Yeah. The sidereal I'd say is probably like a simplified version of Vedic. That's what I'd say. But
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because 'cause I've looked up Vedic a little bit before, and I don't wanna, like, I can't remember the names, but I wanna say, like, it was, like, Rahu, right, or something like that,
Yeah.
the different, and
Rahu and Ketu.
yes, and that was kinda
Yeah.
confusing to me. I'm like, "Wait, I'm not there yet. Let me just get my footing on that I'm a Virgo and not a Gemini."
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to see if you wanted to go through too the the zodiac. Okay, well, first I wanted to ask, so I know with Western, it's a lot of houses, right? I mean, I know each zodiac represents its own house. And then with at least Western, when we're born, it's like a snapshot of where those planets are in those houses. But
Yeah.
sidereal, and maybe I'm wrong, sidereal doesn't really concentrate too much on where those things are in houses, correct?
Sidereal itself does because you can like go on is it AstroCaf or something and you can get the circle chart and it will still pop up and say like where things are in houses. Um but it's just me looking up at the sky. This is basically from me. I don't focus too much on the houses. Um I just focus on like what the house represents, but not so much what house your sign is in, if you know what I mean,
Mhm.
if that makes sense. So, yeah, I'll probably mention what the first house is about if there's a luminary star inside of Aries, for example, because that covers the first house. But like when that snapshot is the way it does it on the computer. I'm trying to describe it in the best way possible. The way it does it on the computer, it will show exactly what house it falls into. But maybe I'm just not there yet. It takes a lot more work to look at the app and figure out, okay, it's this exact house. But yeah, I've found it hasn't been really necessary. From the feedback I get from my readings anyway, I just don't pay too much attention to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of my favorite parts of your reading is, you'll bring up the Stellarium app. So when you're showing the planets or illuminaries, right? Um, you're showing the actual constellation, and you can see, and you talk about this a lot, like if it's on the foot or right in the center or by the heart, like to you,
Yeah.
you read that differently for where it actually is in that moment. And I really like that. That was like a really special part about reading that. And that's one thing I've been getting into, and I want to get like a constellation map. I think it's
Mm.
I do see the stars and it's crazy. I mostly see the stars when I'm putting my children on the bus in the morning time. I'm like, this is so wrong. You know what I mean? Like, we should not be going to school when the stars are outside, right? And there's so much that you can't see because of the light and just, where I guess I am located. But I went to the beach, a year or so ago, and the sun went down and the moon didn't come up yet. And I was blown away at seeing all those stars. I was like, "Oh my god, this is so different," that when I look up at the nighttime sky and I can see how, you know, thousands of years ago when people would just like that was their entertainment was to look at the stars, and I can see how they would make, stories of everything and wherever these stories originated from, right? Or passed down and stuff. But I can totally see that. And it's like so amazing because I would think not many people think this way when they look at the sky and really take that time because we don't lay in the grass and just look at the sky.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I admit I didn't for years. I didn't. And where I am as well, it's so cloudy half the time and the pollution and everything, we hardly see stars. But when we went away for like into the country, um, it was so clear. We saw so many shooting stars as well. And it was just it's beautiful. It is. So it makes sense that would have been their entertainment for sure.
Yes, that does.
Yeah.
But that's what I love about when you do your readings. It will come up the stars and then, it connects that dots of what that constellation is. And
Yeah.
another thing I really love from your readings is you always say, um, trust yourself. That's the ultimate thing, right? Is like we
Yeah.
trust ourselves. This is like a tool and it's like a great tool, but it's like you have to like listen to yourself.
Yeah. I always say that, like, don't get too attached. Just don't get too attached because that's, I feel as well that attachment, and I've seen this with some people, like that attachment to their zodiac sign, they found it really difficult to like even comprehend they possibly aren't that sign. Like they just can't. So that's why I say don't use it as a tool, don't let the tool use you. And if it gets too much, just throw it away. Literally, just look at the stars and just observe its beauty. You don't have to let it rule you. Like, not at all. Put it down when you need to.
Yeah. And I know of
Mm.
another big part, and this is kind of just I kind of got into this recently. A big difference between Western and sidereal is that Western has 12 signs and sidereal has 13. And well, I wanted to see, just starting off with that, if you wanted to go through the zodiacs and just speak a little bit about them, like what they represent, and anything else that's important, like their symbol, like what their symbol represents. And then, of course, talk about the 13th, which I've heard you say before is not really the 13th sign, right? It's in between those signs. So I just wanted to see if you wanted to talk about that part that I find the most interesting part about sidereal.
Yeah. So, um, it kind of starts like as waters above kind of highlighted this for me. Um, Pisces is kind of like the first and the last sign because it's the water element. Yeah, because it's the water element, and this is how I like to picture it. This is the story I see in my head. Again, I don't know if it's because it's just a neurodivergent brain, but this is how I see it. We are birthed in the waters. We come out of the waters, which is Pisces. Pisces being the first and the last has all of the zodiacs within it, just like that water memory. It holds it all. Um, so it's in the waters. Technically, we attune ourselves to the wavelengths, the frequencies we want, and then we're birthed out. Okay, so like in the body, we're birthed out of our mother's birthing canal, and then the fire element kicks in. We start crying as a baby, and this is Aries. We're birthed out. We can now see our whole first house, which is our body, our vessel. um this fire element comes in, this passion, which is what Aries is about. being fire, is very passionate. And then once knowing your flame, that spark, you enter into Taurus, which is the toroidal field. So its horns are like a toroidal. We're in a toroidal field. This is like, the whole hologram. And this toroidal field is known, you can call it your aura, your energy field, your Merkaba even. It's this energy field that begins to attract these experiences to you through Taurus. And then you go into, what's after Taurus? Cancer. Once is it Cancer? No, Gemini.
You're
Yeah.
making me think.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Gemini. Taurus, Gemini. So once you've attracted these experiences to you as well, and I know I'm mentioning just a certain part of it, so we'll ring back around again. But once you've started to attract these experiences to you, you then enter into exchanging that energy. This is Gemini air. You're then exchanging that energy, interacting and things of that nature with the things that you've begun to attract into you. Then we go into Cancer. From that energy exchange you did with Gemini, you then know what you want to grow, nurture and protect, what you need to keep away from you, and what you want to grow. Once you know that and you're nurturing, you can then move into Leo, and you're bold, you're confident like that lion. Um, not in an arrogant way. I always say this about Leo, it's not arrogance, it's just I am that I am energy. And that passion is there boldly. And then once you've got that passion, boldness, you then enter into Virgo, and you go into more of the finer details of knowing how to exchange your energy even more precisely from this passion that you've had. And then Virgo, we go into Libra, and it's like getting that balance with what you're now exchanging your energy with. Scorpio, you have a whole rebirth. So this is where the leveling up begins to happen. You have that rebirth with Scorpio. You recognize your weaknesses, your strengths, things of that nature. And again, your passion even more. And you have to shed the old. And this is where your sign comes in, Ophiuchus. I'm sure it's pronounced Ophiuchus. But I just say it as Ophiuchus. So, mini confirmation.
Wait, I just have
um,
to say, that is one thing I love about your readings too, is that you'll burp and then you'll say mini confirmation burp. And then I remember one time you burped, right? And you said, "Oh, that's a major confirmation." And I just love that. I just do.
yeah, it just comes out. Oh gosh. But yeah, Ophiuchus is the healer and transmutator of energy. Being that ninth sign after that Scorpio birth, this is literally where your energy begins to change. So, the whole zodiac wheel is it's meant to be a spiral, like you spiral up. So there needs to be that constant change. This is why it just goes around and around and around all the time. So yeah, Ophiuchus, we energetically change at this point, getting ready to, of course, attract new things. Then after Ophiuchus, we go into Sagittarius. That passion after that transformation comes in more stronger. Sagittarius being the third fire sign, so it's the most maturest. It comes in more stronger, more precisely. You know what you want to do. You develop your own philosophy from this transformation, basically. Travel could be included too. Um, and then after that, you know where you want to go, you go in that direction. We enter into Capricorn. You've gone in that direction and you lay a foundation in this new area or energetic area you're ready to build up on, and you work towards a long-term goal. And then Aquarius comes in, throws in a little unique idea that could contribute to stability. You know how sometimes they say Aquarius can be quite standoffish and they, a little bit weird at times, but it's only because they contribute to what will support them. Because if it won't support them or for their long term goals, there's no point. And then, yeah, after that, Aquarius energy, we enter back into Pisces, where we start the whole cycle all over again.
Yeah, I have some questions about when you were speaking. I was taking some notes.
Hmm.
I know, well, okay, first let me say, I know when we talk about the wheel, right? Or and maybe this is different because you're talking about spiraling. That was the first time I ever heard about spiraling up. When we go through this hero's journey, right? That's what it is going through the cycle. And I've heard some things about this. Are we supposed to break free from it? Break free, and how do you break free? And then I just recently heard like you break free through um yes, when I say I like the way you say Ophiuchus because that rolls off my tongue, and I think you're right. It's like Ophiuchus, I think is like
Yeah.
okay. We're just gonna call it Ophiuchus. Okay. And then I recently heard like to break through is through Ophiuchus. Now I don't know, I just hear little things here and there, but I just wanted to get your opinion on, do you think it's a breaking through or like this is like, no, this is the journey we go through?
I feel like I generally feel when people even say, "Oh, breakthrough or escape the matrix" and things of that nature, I don't feel it's possible. Um, yeah, I don't feel it's possible because I feel the matrix is the mother, it's the womb, it's the matter, and we reside within the matter. Our light oscillates within matter, basically. So I feel it's breaking through more of the illusion of what we've been placed in and this restrictive energy. But I do see how Ophiuchus can be that breakthrough energetically because, like I said, that I feel we're meant to be having a wonderful human experience personally, but we've been hijacked somewhere. So even within our DNA, we're not um we're not using all of our strands of our DNA and things of that nature. So that's kind of how I see it, even with the Ophiuchus energy. It's that breakthrough to how can I put it, more bandwidths of consciousness. It's literally energetically expanding so we can access more in the hologram. And then that would be even like personally your own personal journey going through experiences. The Ophiuchus energy along with Scorpio would be that full on transformation, breaking, like shedding an old skin and walking in your new one. So yeah.
Why do you think Western astrology is only 12 signs and then sidereal has this 13 sign? Like, why do you think Ophiuchus isn't known to many and some people hear about it, right? And I don't know, maybe it's just the circle that I'm in too. I feel like more people are asking questions about it.
Mhm.
But why do you think one system has 12 houses and then the other system has 13?
Um, I think one reason I feel they've hidden Ophiuchus is because of its location in the sky. So Ophiuchus sits exactly on the galactic center. So it's, how can you put it, like a cosmic opening in the sky. So energetically alone, it's just its placement is very, very powerful. So I feel that, not acknowledging attention, energy goes where attention flows, isn't it? So getting the mass collective to not acknowledge it means less power we're getting from it, or less power we can use from it, if you know what I mean, less energy we can use because we're not giving it any attention. So that's why I feel it's been hidden. I know people drop this into religion as well. They try to say like Ophiuchus is like Jesus as well and things of that nature. But it's just metaphorically because it is that snake, that transformation. Um and yeah, so and why 13 and exactly 12? I feel the 12 was easily divided. It's like, how can I put it, from like because I see it as technology. That's how I view even the stars out there. I see all as technology. So I feel they done it as 12 because it may have been just easier to manipulate the technology in that way to make it easily, like, equally divided. Because something again I noticed looking at the sky, Virgo being the longest constellation, all of the luminaries stay inside Virgo for the longest. It's not equal, so even the moon isn't, usually the moon's like 2.5 days, sometimes two, but for Virgo it's going on 3 to 3.5 days the moon will stay in Virgo for. um Whereas of course the 12 zodiac cycle, they're all placed equally, and that's just not the case. So I feel it's just like a mimic of well, I say natural technology, this ancient technology that's being used. Yeah.
Yeah. I knew, with Western astrology, it's a 12 houses and they're 30 degrees each, right? So that makes, the 360, right? Um, so that makes a lot of sense to me. And I've heard this too, that Virgo is the largest constellation, and some of them are all different sizes. So it's
Mhm.
not it's not so straightforward. And I just heard today on this other video I was listening to, and she was talking about the galactic center, and I was like, well, wait a minute, I've never heard about this, so now I'm like, okay, I have to go research more. But and she was talking a little bit about Ophiuchus being there, and she mentioned too, oh, I wish I could remember all the other ones that were like right there. And she was talking about Ophiuchus and, oh, Jesus, right? And but she was speaking about it metaphorically too, right? Like not actual Jesus. And there was a couple other ones, and I don't want to butcher names, but I believe one was Mexican. It was like, I don't even remember, Quizzy something. I don't even want to, but there were some other, um I don't know if they were stars because I have to go back and listen to it, but there's a lot going on right there at that galactic center. And
Yeah.
she was talking about, I think, that when the sun like finally hits that, like almost like that dead on area, she was talking about a certain date, and how, these outside, or these luminaries, these planets, and that's another thing I wanted to speak about, because when we talk about the personal charts, which are awesome, right? We get understanding about ourselves, but it's not just for that. It's to know that there's all these energies that are going on around us and affecting us in ways that's not even on our inside. And that these, how the planets travel and what they go through, and, the eclipses, all these things that happen affect everything that goes around us. And I mean, just because we're in this time, at least in the United States, with the elections, or I mean, we're both into crypto, how much this stuff affects crypto, the financial markets. Like, this stuff really affects many, many things, on many aspects. And that, the Egyptians, I know they say astrology isn't that old, right? But the Egyptians studied this, the Mayans and the Mayan calendar, like how much this all comes into. And I was listening, going back to what you were speaking about the 13, I was listening to that it was, I don't know if it was the Mayans. I'm really bad at remembering history kind of things, but that we used to follow like the 13 moons, the 13 months. And now
Yeah.
we're into the 12. And something happens where it just all kind of got hijacked into what is really not, and what really is. And that's why makes me very interested in sidereal, because it seems like there are a lot of layers to it and a lot of truths that are in sidereal.
Yeah, definitely. And something well, a reason why I draw more to it as well is because they push the other one so much. Like that was a big sign for me. I'm just like, okay, this has been pushed for a very long time that these are like the placements. Even before the internet, you'd have it at the back of a newspaper, magazines, and you'd know, yep, that's my sign during these dates. Um, and yeah, sidereal, just even just looking at the sky, so it's more like astronomy, so to say, is not pushed at all. And I heard once, probably about 5 years ago, astronomers didn't really like astrologers, and I didn't understand why, but now I get it because, yeah,
The liars. I shouldn't, and I shouldn't say that because, and I'd like to ask you that too. Do you think Western astrology plays a part in anything? Do you think it's important for anything?
I I feel that Western astrology is, how can I put it? It's the world stage and the story they want you to personally live. It's like that's the conclusion I've come to. So I do feel it's actually wise to be aware of your placements in Western as well. That's just the wise thing to do. And of course, you go with what you resonate more, but at least having that knowledge, then you've got the knowledge. Um, and especially as you says, we are both into crypto, paying attention to even Western, it's gonna be important too. So yeah, like you don't have to, but I won't say throw it out with the baby and the bathwater, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's interesting, when I hear things, now my mind kind of goes to sidereal and I try to like look at that. And then when I see things about Western, I pause and I think, okay, where does this come in and how does this like I don't even know if they can they integrate with each other or are they pretty separate? Like is there anything that's similar and that they work together with or
Some moons, like I says, um, sometimes it would still be like a full moon may be in the same sign. Like what was the other one? The last full moon we had, it was the same sign. Was it Aries? Was it meant to be Aries? Yeah. And Western astrology was saying it's a full moon in Aries as well. So it's not often, but it's only the moons. The rest doesn't at all.
oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. I didn't
Yeah.
know. And I wanted you to speak because it's one of the things I liked about your reading too. You talk about the hologram. And, I just well, first of all, I love your sayings. Like, you'll say, "The hologram be hologram," and like, it does. And another thing, oh my goodness, and we'll have to get into this if you want to, about, the planets. And, we talked about Uranus, and you've said in your reading, you're like, Uranus can be, delusional, right? But, the Delulu is the Solulu. And I just love that. So I really
Yeah.
do. I laugh at a lot of the stuff you say or, I'll smirk at it. I'm like, "Oh, that's a good one. I like that. I'm gonna steal that." But anyway, if you wanna go ahead and, talk about the hologram and how you view it, because that when you started talking about that, I'm like, "Oh, yeah," because that kind of fits with, if we are living in this simulation, right? I mean, the things around us are real, but if we are in a simulation, I just find that kind of interesting, and I love how you put it towards like a TV screen is the hologram. So yeah, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so that's how I see it in my head. Like you said, the TV screen, the Black Mirror. So it's just like even, phone, it's a Black Mirror device. The laptop's a Black Mirror, and when you turn it on, you can go so deep and go into so many places. So that's how I see the hologram, the simulation. The sky is the ultimate Black Mirror device, and it's kind of reflecting off the projection and then coming back down again. So it's kind of like we stem off from the middle, it goes up into the stars, and then that reflects back down from the black sun in the middle. But yeah, and then I see us as the light. So that projection goes up, hits the dome, could you say, and it will fractalize, that light fractalize, and then it densifies into matter. So this is where it will be oscillating at high speeds, and it's surrounded by the matter, the mother, the womb, so it can exist. Um, and yeah, this fractalization, of course, for everyone or everything, whenever it exists, begins to exist, it's like a timestamp. Um, and then you know where most of these energies are, basically. So yeah, that's how I see the hologram. I see as a simulation, and these energies reside within us, and we just act on it automatically. So we do it on autopilot, and that's another thing why I always say trust yourself, because it's just like a snapshot of coding within you. So you're gonna live out your code anyway. So trust yourself, you know?
Yeah, do you think we're fractal, so when you're talking about matter,
Hmm.
do you subscribe to that we're fractalizations too of the stars, and that's how, we've incarnated here onto Earth? Just wondering your opinion.
Um, I feel this is going down the direction of like star seeds and stuff. Um, like, how can I put it? I feel it's I feel when people say like, "Oh yeah, we're part of the stars," as I look at more constellations than just the 13, I look at more. Um, we've got way more than what I even go through on the readings, and I go through a few extra than normal. Um, like we've got the asteroids. Do you know the asteroids in astrology as well? Like Caress, Juno, and all of that. That will go, you'll see more in different star constellations when you look deeper. So you'll see, um, you may have one by Lyra. You may have one by Lyra, and then that element would be Lyrian. You'll have the Lyrian qualities and things of that nature. So that's how I see where from, say, the stars, I personally see we are one light source. We are just one entering into this experience. And this one has gone up through, say, the black hole sun, and it's been projected out and then fractalized into all of us. So we are fractals of one thing. Um, and then that's how I see it. So it's kind of like not necessarily you're from this star, so to say, because you we're one.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I love that because, just listening to things here and there, and I pull out things from my past, right? And I've heard about the star seeds and things like that. And I mean, maybe, right? I don't know. I just like talking about it because, the
Yeah,
more you get other people's experience or wisdom on it, it's just kind of like I always like to say, some things ring my truth bell. Like some things I hear and I'll say, oh, like I heard this, I don't know. And then I'll hear something else that's like a layer to it. And that can take me down in different directions or wherever. And then things will start ringing my truth bell. And then I'll go down that aspect to start researching that. And I like that because I definitely believe we're all one, but in my mind, maybe that's being the Virgo, right? Trying to like analyze. I'm like, what do we mean we're all one? Like, where do we come from? I need to know this. Like, I need to know this. And I'm fine with also not knowing it, but I love exploring it. Let's just say that. I just love listening to other people and their opinions because I always think this too whenever I hear things. Um, no one knows everything. No one knows the answers, right? It's just like people gathering the information and putting the puzzle together with all the pieces, you
yeah,
know? Yeah.
exactly that.
Okay. I know
Exactly that.
I keep you're stimulating my mind, like I'm having like little mini mind orgasms going on because you talked about the black sun, and I've heard this before too, and I don't really know much about it. So I just want to see, what do you know? I need to know.
Again, I don't know too much about it, to be honest,
Yeah.
but it's basically um basically the black sun is meant to be the real sun, and it sits underneath us. So you've got like the plane of inertia, which is where we are, and the black sun is underneath us there, because we're supposedly inverted. this third dimension is supposedly inverted or mirrored, how to put it, because it's a projection, it's a simulation. um so it's coming, the source is like this black sun supposedly, and yeah, it's underneath. I don't know, and people are saying, oh, the black sun's meant to be coming back. I have no idea about that, or what will happen if that does happen. I don't know. um but it's meant to be the power source ultimately, yeah, of the simulation.
Okay, I was just gonna say the power source of what? Like us or
Yeah, the whole
this
simulation.
okay.
Hmm.
Interesting. I'm gonna have to get into that because I've been hearing people talk about it. And then I also sometimes think, well, is the popular way the way to go, right? If everybody's talking about it, and then yeah, like what's the truth, And everybody has like their opinions. But and I wanted to say when you were speaking, when you talk about projection, do you think projection is the same as a mirror?
No, because you've got projection and a mirror would be reflection ultimately.
Okay.
um you'd use mirrors in from once it's projected, you'll use mirrors, and ultimately again that's part of our reality. We ourselves are mirrors as well, we will reflect something. So it's like we've got a whole projection and then a bunch of mirrors which makes more things exist. So no, it's definitely different.
Yeah, honestly, when you were talking about that, I'm like, "No, that is different because I like to think about that, there are projections, and then you have to know the difference between the mirror, right? Like, I always think, in relationships, a lot of times, they are mirrors, right? But then there's sometimes that you have to differentiate, like, is that a mirror or is that a projection?
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Alright, well, do you want to go down, and I don't know what your timeline is and, whenever you're like, "Hey, I've had enough. I'm at my bedtime. Just cut me off." So this is, in, where I am, Eastern Standard Time, like, this is my time. This is when I start, like, coming alive. This is party time, when the sun starts to go down just a little bit and, the workday is really over, and I bring out my wine, a little bit of wine sometimes on a Friday or Saturday. Okay, so anyway, but I wanted to see if you wanted to go through, the planets, the stars, and just what they represent through astrology. Or,
Yeah.
whatever when you do your reading, I love that part of your reading too, because you always talk about obviously the planets and what they mean, and then which I know you don't have your pen today, but on your readings, you'll bring out your little pen and you'll draw the symbols, which are super helpful. So yeah, just wanted to see if
Mhm.
you want to talk about that.
Yeah. So, um, where do I normally start? So the sun. So going through all of the stars, the planets, the luminaries, the sun represents the ego. So the ego is very important. I always say this because throughout the spiritual journey, many people have said, squash the ego, don't listen to it. But the ego is how you perceive and interact with reality. It's the lens that you operate through. It's also how you naturally shine. And yeah, it's more masculine. The sun's more masculine. The moon is then the opposite of the sun. So this represents your internal values. It's what you value internally. It's very feminine in nature. It's how your energy moves. So this is your emotions. The moon is how, if you're happy, excited, just as you says, this is your party time, you're coming alive. That's your moon, your emotions, your energy moving you. Um, and I do like to highlight when it's the moons, if it's a full moon or a new moon, because that makes a difference as well. Even if it's a half moon or anything, it makes a difference. And
I
then
just
we've got
interrupt you for just 1 second. When you talk about the moon, um, just because this hit me a lot, and because I want to say also how much your readings truly mean, to me, and like I just recommend you to everybody because you give so much information. You even talked about in the moon for myself, right? That I was born on like basically a new moon, a little sliver of the moon. And it really hit me when you said around this time of the month that also being, my moon is in Leo and my sun is in Virgo, that I'm really going to feel intuitive hits around that new moon or just coming out of the new moon, and to, again, trust ourselves, right? And that just really hit me. And I've never had someone talk to me about a personal moon like that, and to pay attention to that time of the month, especially to really to feel that. So anyway, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I knew I would forget about it if we went all the way through. So okay, continue.
It's okay. I'm so happy it resonates, as I said. Um, and yeah, so after the moon, what's next? Venus. I'll do Venus next. So Venus represents then your material values, is what you value in the material that makes you want to use your six senses to interact with it. So sight, taste, touch, hearing, smell, as well as your intuition, all part of it. So it literally represents the material reality, and your physical interaction with it. Venus as well is feminine, so it's your receptive mode. It's how you open up and receive, literally on a cellular level. Um, yeah, so that's important to know. And then is Mercury is energy exchange. So the umbrella term is just energy exchange, and of course that covers your thoughts, communication. Um, I even like to say the communication if your body's in any form of dis-ease and it communicates with itself, that's the Mercury technology. And money as well, monetary, because Mercury is Hermes, little mythology, but it's Hermes, the winged god, the winged messenger. So yeah, that's all about energy exchange, how you exchange your energy. Mars then is the opposite of Venus, and it represents your natural drive and passion. Um, yeah, as basic as it is what you're passionate about. What will you just get up and go for? And again, I wish I could draw like the symbols, but how the symbols are, it really makes sense. I like to look at all angles. But yeah, that's Mars. And Mars being the opposite of Venus, Venus being receptive, Mars is the giving one. So it's how you give, whether that's for love or whatever. And then we've got Jupiter. So Jupiter is known as the luminary of expansion. A lot of people do often say it's luck, but it's not really luck. It just expands. Whatever it is, it's going to expand wherever you are. So there could be an upward spiral or a downward spiral, bad habit or a good habit. It's going to expand you. Saturn represents time. Saturn is known as Father Time, represents time, and it's the area where you can put stability and consistency into your life. So you have to be consistent, disciplined, structured when it comes to Saturn energy, because being that Father Time, you probably heard of Saturn return. Your 30th year of being on the earth, I think 29 to 30, when Saturn enters back into your sign, you need to kind of prove, like, yeah, I've been consistent, disciplined in this, and then that restriction will be released. So it can feel a bit restrictive because you need to put in the work when it comes to Saturn. You need to spend your time wisely. And then Uranus is the father of electricity. So Uranus is basically operating in the Uranus energy. um, you can activate sudden change. Uranus can bring sudden change in your life. So, little difficult luminary to work with at times, but because it will knock down the old in order for the new to come in. And of course, that old being knocked down may not be the most pleasant experience. But that's what Uranus does. It's a bit transformative because it does link to plutonium on the periodic table. So there's a bit of like death and rebirth in there. And then that brings us to Neptune. So Neptune is the deepest depths of who you are. And I like to say how you can reach your dreams, basically. Neptune's the delusional one because um it's Poseidon's trident. Its symbol literally looks like a trident, and a trident's like a fork, and I do like to say it's a tuning fork. Being a water element, and this is where the delusion comes in, because it recognizes the connection to everything. So it knows it's possible. It knows any type of brain connection that needs to happen. It knows it's possible. But this is where the delusion has to come in. But this is where you also can trust your intuition. It's very deep on intuition, very deep on dreams, visions, and things very spiritual in nature. Um, and yeah, so I'd say listening to your intuitions, dreams, and stuff, and recognizing you can be anything will, of course, get you to your dreams you want to be. And then we've got Pluto. Pluto is known as the god of the underworld, and Pluto is transformative in nature. So it wants to transform you to whatever you want to be, basically. So this is where a whole death and rebirth will come in again, like Uranus. It's not going to be the most easiest experience because transformation is difficult, but these are slower moving luminaries. So even though some things may be a big change at a certain point in your life, but oftentimes it may come up as small little things and then a big thing and small little things, constantly changing. And yeah, then we've got Lilith. Lilith, Black Moon Lilith. She, the mythology of her, she was Adam's first wife. And, she basically said, fuck this shit, and grew her wings and flew away. But um, she basically represents what we are truly passionate about, but we're being restricted in that area. So when it comes to Lilith as well as Chiron, I like to say the hologram will always create illusions. Um, it will create illusions through mirrors or whatever. Mirror could be anyone, a person, a job, a circumstance, to keep you suppressed and stuck. It will do that as much as it can. And the Lilith aspect is one of them. The hologram wants to keep you suppressed in this area, um, but it's your passion. So I always say this is, again, trust yourself. If you're truly passionate about a certain thing, you need to break through the illusions of the hologram because it's just an illusion. Yeah, so that's Lilith. And then after Lilith, I go into the next one, Fortune. I go into Fortune. So this is just, is it an asteroid? And it's basically operating in that energy will bring fortune and prosperity to you. It's as simple as that. This is one that wanders through extra star constellations beyond the 13 as well. So I've had some people had fortune in just some interesting places like Orion and things like that. And yeah, and then we've got Chiron. We've got Chiron, which is known as the wounded warrior, wounded soldier. And the symbol of Chiron is literally like a key. So I do often say that this energy is key to I'd say the key to it all. Like, it's a big. Now I always say it depends on what you subscribe to. If you subscribe to like past lives, then it can be a wound that you've got from a past life because it represents a wound. But if you don't subscribe to that, then I'd say it's a wound that you've got in your early childhood or, early adulthood, teenage years of being yourself. So you've done something, you're just being yourself and you were wounded for it in some way. So it then makes you hesitant, whether in this lifetime or in your adult years, to go in a certain direction because you're wounded there, you're a bit scared. But again, this is where I say this, the hologram is making illusions, because ultimately you operating in that energy is a big key to it all. It's a key to decode yourself, maybe. Like, I don't know, however you want to look at it. And yeah, and then we've got, after that, it's a rising sign. So of course rising signs are going to be different for everyone, but the rising sign is what we are learning to be. I call it the game coat. So even though people may see elements of your sun, they're gonna know your rising as well, because it's kind of like your game coat, what is put on, and you learn to do it. Again, all of these aspects could be like, oh, you're learning to do it, all the different luminaries. Um, so the holograms comes with experience for you to carry out that energy, basically. And what I'm going into in my extended reading is the child. So that simply represents your inner child, and yeah, how you can co-create with your inner child if you know what it would like, basically. So yeah, they're all of the ones that I cover.
Yeah, I love your readings. I know I keep saying that, but it was so good. You go into so much, and then even at the end, you do a little bit of numerology and
Mhm.
life path, right? Is that what it right? You go into those two
Yeah,
things?
a little bit of numerology, and it's called birth card illumination.
Okay.
Yeah, so like every day, this is where I got this from Decode Your Reality. I don't know if you've seen him on YouTube, but every day of the year there's like a it's associated to a card, like tour clubs and things like that, and then it has a meaning. And then again, I just came across that, and I was like, oh wow, it resonated with me for my birthday, so I just thought I'd include it into the readings to give people that extra insight.
Yeah, and I remember when you did my reading and you gave me that when you told me mine, um, it kinda pulled the whole reading together a little bit, like, some parts of it, you're like or at least what that card was, you took from what was going on in my reading and said, "Okay, I can kinda see how this is all, interwoven together," if that's
Yeah.
a word. And and I wanted to say that too about your readings because I did a couple on my sons, and I wanted to say that for the listeners too, like, how helpful that is if for your family members or whoever you wanna give them to, but I did them for my boys to even though I know my children pretty well, it was really nice to hear, okay, what I'm feeling about them, what I'm hearing about them is true, and how do I wanna continue on to help them through this world, and, you know, um, I didn't have that as a child, right? Like, and I'm not trying to come at my parents or anything like that about this, but, like, I didn't have guidance like that. So to be able to have this knowledge and to be able to help my children through, to guide them is just like another great tool to have, especially for our children who are, like the most important things to people who are parents typically, and we just want them to carry on and, make the world a better place if we can, So yeah, I love that
Yeah.
part of it too, was doing that for my boys. It was awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome. But yeah, it's so helpful because even just looking at my children's charts, I'm like, oh wow. And I actually haven't done a whole reading like that for my own children yet. And I feel like I do want to, I need to do that, but I do have it written down so I know where their placements are. But it's just helped me to see basically that little bit more. Um and yeah, like I says, my whole intention with my readings is that you can know yourself just that little bit more, so you can trust yourself even more. Um, yeah, and it,
And
it helps. I'm glad it does.
Yeah, and it's awesome because with my boys, they're young, they're 8 and 6, so they're just coming up into life, right? Um, and it helps me because when they do things or they're saying things or they're communicating with me, it's a nice reminder put in my head to say to them, "Hey, listen, like you have to trust your heart on this. Like, what do you feel?" And to really push that into them so they can feel like they can trust themselves in a society where it tells you to trust anything but yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super important. And then, and I remember one thing you said about my son too, and I'm just telling this for other people who are parents, where my son's placement was, he had a lot of Piscean energy. And I remember you telling me, that he may feel that he's not understood. So when he has his moments of like his little breakdowns and stuff, I'd stop you know, when I'm just like, okay, like, do you have to do this right here, right now, right? I stop myself and be like, okay, like, what are you trying? What do you need? What are you trying to tell me? You know, and or if he's having his meltdown and we get through that, right? And then at the end of the night, it's like we kind of come back and talk about things like, what do you need? Was I understanding you correctly? You know, so it's just like a great way to be able to communicate with these little people that we created.
Exactly. And giving him what he needs as well. So instead of like, just saying, why are you doing this? There's no need, just shutting him down, which then leads to issues as he grows up. It's having that deeper insight. We can really support our little ones to flourish literally as they are. So it's it it was yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy I had my high time, sky time and fell into all of this.
Yes, I mean, and we can end it with that too, is just, and I'll link your YouTube channel. I know you have a YouTube channel, you have a bunch of videos on there. I love that you
Yeah.
left like your old stuff on there too, right? Like for
Yeah,
the
I've
growth of
I've still
somebody.
got
Yeah.
it there. Like, I started my channel with hair. It was hair originally. Then I went into so much other things, and I've just kinda stuck with crypto and astrology now, but my aim is to bring out more videos. I've actually got them. I'm like a years behind on editing, so I just need to get them out. But yeah.
Yeah, and I love that too, and I identify with that because when I first started, this podcast, I mostly did it on just the podcasting, not YouTube. And I didn't bring a lot of my stuff over to YouTube because now I kind of regret it a little bit because when I think back when I started my podcast, I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm not even that person anymore," or like the things that I believe in aren't even where I'm at today. And it's hard to be like or the decision of like, do I sweep that shit under the carpet, or do I bring it along for the ride of like the evolution of us? But anyway, so it was really nice to see that you left that part of
Mhm.
you, right? Like the evolution of where you are and what you believe. And I talk about you to so many people when if I talk about astrology, I'm like, no. I'm like, if you want to know, a real deep part of yourself, I'm like, this is the girl to see. Kalita.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So
Oh
I'm
god.
very happy that you were introduced to my life, and I hope many more people reach out to you because you've definitely have given me a lot of insight, and then also inspired me from my reading, right? Because there was a lot of things that you hit on. You talked about like health and wellness, and that's a big part of my journey, and wanting to bring this out, and just a bunch of things that were personal to me where I was like, oh, I'm going in the right direction, right? I don't know where it leads me, but I'm going in the right direction. So that was so awesome. And then with the kids stuff that you brought, and I don't know. I just can't say enough about you, Kalita. I just love you.
Oh, I'm so happy because Eddie messaged me, and he was like, "Oh, I want to buy a reading for my friend." I'm like, "Oh, so yeah, thank you."
Yeah. Well,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it because you've helped illuminate my life, and letting me kind of get that feedback of like, you're going in the right direction, Tiffany. Just continue on and trust yourself, right? So
Yeah,
you brought a little bit of that into my journey, as did Eddie. And I appreciate, I mean, just a really great community on Discord anyway.
yeah,
Really great community. I've met some really great people. So I'm so happy it's brought me to you. And yeah, maybe I'll have you back on and we can talk about some deeper stuff in astrology.
yeah, definitely. And I wanted to say, do check out people. I've got a whole diary and calendar. The calendar's up on the wall though, so I'm just gonna
Yeah.
leave that there. But I'll send you the links if people want that. No, it finishes in March. Yeah, it finishes in March, but there will be a new one available in December. So
Yeah.
by the end of this year for 2025 into 2026. So just
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's a great calendar because, like, when the Western world, Western astrology tells us something, I'm like, well, let me go see if that's what's really happening. And then I go over to the calendar and it's teaching me something. It's making my brain like think through all of it
Yeah.
and relate to it. Um and then it just kind of blew my mind the other day to know, okay, like I have to start paying attention to what sidereal moon is, okay, and not just what the western moon, especially because I'm getting into fasting more and want to try to get that to line up a little bit better if I can. So that's super helpful. And then shit, then I just found out that yeah, like Pluto's not going into Aquarius, that Pluto's going to Capricorn. And I'm like, well, fuck, man. Like I'm starting at ground zero.
I know.
But it's
But
okay.
again,
Not
that's a
bad.
fascinating one to probably end there. But it's like you can see how when you look at the world, it makes a bit more sense because when they were saying Pluto was in Capricorn before it moved into Aquarius, it was technically in Sagittarius. So this is, your own philosophy, developing that you're learning a lot higher education. And during that time, this is when the whole secret came out. We were learning about manifestation, and a lot more information was coming out. Cryptocurrency came out, that's another thing we were learning. Um, and now moving into Capricorn, it's about laying a new foundation. This is why old structures are falling down, systems are falling down. So, yeah. So just looking at the world, I can see how, okay, it was definitely, you know, the sky is accurate, basically. But yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and like yeah, like it kind of blew my mind. I was like, okay, well, I got to go think about this for a little bit. And then also like, but like with the ages, right? I'm not going to get into all this, but with the ages that the age really is coming into Aquarius. And
Yeah.
I know we don't know the exact dates and we just kind of have to see what's going on, or maybe you do know the exact date. I don't know. But, coming into that. So there is going to be a lot of Aquarian energy. And we can see
Yeah.
that with AI and all the crypto, right? Like crypto is going to
Yeah.
be like a thing of the future, and there's not going to be any paper things anymore. So we can, we're starting to feel it. So it's happening.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
starting. It's definitely starting.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of
Mm.
wild. Be
I
prepared,
know.
right? And that's another thing that's great about astrology is, it prepares us, right? And we
Exactly.
can see things around us happening and kind of coming to fruition.
Yeah, it's
Well,
true.
thank you, Kalita, so much. I love speaking with you. So, hopefully we'll get together in the future.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me on. Honestly, it was lovely.
Okay. And I'll definitely put your links in the description so people can check you out and, be able to book readings and get your calendars too.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much. This is thank you in sign language.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.